Shocking discovery. FBI agent's lunch encounter sparks $500K lawsuit and inspires amazing change. Sarah Thompson slid into her usual booth at Moe's Diner, the smell of greasy burgers and fresh coffee wrapping around her like an old friend. It was a comforting routine, something that grounded her amidst the chaos of her job as an FBI agent. The case that had consumed her days felt simultaneously distant and suffocating. Across the table, Walter, the diner's weary owner, caught her eye, his apron stained and his smile wavering under the weight of a hidden struggle. "Hey, Sarah," he said, pouring a cup of coffee with a practiced hand but a distracted mind. "Been thinking about how to keep this place alive." A knot tightened in Sarah's stomach. She had known this diner since childhood, a staple location tied to her father's reign as the beloved school principal. "You're not closing, are you?" she asked, caught off guard by the thought. She didn't want to hear the answer. "Can't pay the rent this month," Walter admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Bills, debts, they just keep piling up. And I'm thinking, how much longer can I hold out against the bank?" The gravity of his plight hit her squarely, twisting her heart. How could she enjoy her job? How could she fight crime in far-off cities when someone so local was suffering in silence? It was uncomfortable, a selfish realization that curled her fingers into her palms. For a brief moment her mind paused on the irony of her position. The community her father had nurtured was slowly fading, just like this diner, and she had no idea. Walter's eyes sparkled with a mix of desperation and hope, recounting tales of former students who had walked through those very doors. "They depended on me, you know," he said, his voice laced with a sense of bittersweet nostalgia. "And now, they're facing foreclosure, layoffs, and—" He trailed off, the weight of unspoken words draped over them. A horrifying realization began to creep into her thoughts. The very issues Walter faced were evinced in the myriad of faces she saw every day in the FBI office. The complacency of the powerful, the corruption that hid behind polished glass buildings. She felt the slow burn of guilt. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every word Walter spoke ricocheted in Sarah's mind, each anecdote a reminder of what was slipping away. Somewhere between the snapshot of Walter's tears and laughter, she found herself questioning her purpose. Was she simply a civil servant, or could she be a catalyst for meaningful change? Days later, while digging deeper into her regular casework, she stumbled upon a nefarious connection, a powerful corporation whose rapacious tentacles wrapped around struggling businesses like Walter's. The choice faced her boldly: protect her career or risk it for a principal. The tension built around her home too, with her father's gentle encouragement cloaked in anxiety. He sensed her internal battle, his pride in her profession contrasting sharply with the turmoil she felt. The pity mixed with determination within her burned painfully as she sat on the edge of decisive action. With each passing day, Sarah's world spun closer to a line she was terrified to cross. Could she fight against something so immense? The stakes weren't just hers anymore. They reached into the lives of those she loved, stirring her with dread. At the precipice of her choice, she felt the darkness of the hidden threats against her, a looming shadow from the corporation poised to protect their grip and silence any dissent. As she gathered her resolve to file a lawsuit against the entity threatening the very heart of her town, a chilling message whispered through her mind. Was this fight worth losing everything she held dear? The days that followed felt like a relentless tug-of-war inside Sarah's mind, each moment amplified by the stakes that had become her new reality. She found herself oscillating between determination and paralyzing fear. The weight of her decision pressed against her chest, constricting her breath as she mulled over the implications of her impending lawsuit. The office usually buzzed with the hum of activity, agents shuffling through reports and phone calls filling the air. But today, it felt stifling. Her colleagues moved past her, but their murmurs blended into a muffled drone in Sarah's consciousness. In her rapidly approaching crisis, she detected a distance forming, not just from her co-workers, but from the mission she had once cherished. During a routine briefing on the case she was working on, she felt her mind drift. The presentation on a drug trafficking operation might have once captivated her completely, but all she could see were Walter's weary eyes and the precarious balance of his diner's future. Just as she prepared to disengage, a question from her supervisor broke through the fog. "Agent Thompson, do you have any insights on how this operation is funding itself through local businesses?" he asked, his gaze sharp and inquisitive. Caught off guard, Sarah's instinct was to nod and agree, but an electric urgency surged within her. This was the moment to connect her two worlds. "Actually, I think I've stumbled upon a link between this operation and some of the local businesses that are struggling," she said, her heart racing. The tentative tone in her voice belied the storm brewing inside her. The response from her colleagues was a mix of curiosity and skepticism, a mosaic of puzzled brows and raised eyebrows. Each face reflected her internal struggle, some encouraging, others doubtful, all watching closely as she wrestled publicly with her thoughts. The atmosphere shifted. They were intrigued, drawn into her approach. "Do you believe that they are using pressure on local owners like extortion?" her supervisor urged, stepping closer, giving her a sense of validation. "Possibly," she continued, feeling the knot in her gut loosen just a fraction as her conviction grew stronger. "If businesses like Walter's are failing while strange connections to larger organizations flourish, there might be a pattern we haven't fully explored." The words spilled out, emboldening her, unraveling the knots of fear that had cocooned her. The ensuing discussion ignited a flicker of hope in her. Ideas flowed, and the team rallied around her suggestion. They approached the investigation with renewed energy, transforming her personal dilemma into a powerful investigation point. But as the team became excited, Sarah felt a twinge of anxiety. Could engaging her colleagues in this cause make her a target? She could feel the glances shifting, newfound respect mingling with apprehension. Was she already being put on the radar of those who orchestrated this corruption? That evening, Sarah returned home, her resolve rekindled but her heart still burdened by uncertainty. The drive felt longer, each passing mile twisting into a reflection of her complex emotions. Could she remain an agent while spearheading a fight for something so deeply rooted in her community? Her connection to Walter became an anchor, weighing heavily on her conscience. As she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she recalled her father's unwavering belief in justice. She couldn't help but wonder if he'd be proud or fearful of the direction she was taking. And yet, the critical decision loomed, a fork in the road where she must choose whether to forge ahead or retreat back into the safety of her role within the FBI. Tomorrow, she would face a pivotal moment both personally and professionally. Facing her fears meant confronting the powers threatening her community, and with that confrontation came the real risk of retaliation. The chilling realness of the choice tightened around her like a noose. Could she risk everything she had achieved for a cause rooted in ethical obligation? Would her fight even matter against the formidable corporation lurking in the shadows? A whisper echoed in her mind, urging her onward. The time had come to face the enemy lurking close. The morning sun streamed through the blinds, casting slanted beams of light onto Sarah's unmade bed. The golden rays felt strangely comforting, yet they only accentuated the weight of the impending day. She sat at the edge, head in hands, wrestling with doubts that loomed larger than any shadow. The thought of Walter's diner plagued her. The image of him standing in the dim light, shoulders slumped, flashed in her mind. The stakes felt monumental now, her sense of justice against a powerful adversary. As she prepared for work, her reflection in the bathroom mirror seemed foreign. This wasn't just an ordinary day. It was the day that would ultimately define her. The notion of walking into her office felt daunting. The walls, once a sanctuary of camaraderie, now felt like a pressure cooker where every decision was critical. The familiar smell of coffee brewing in the hallway wafted into her senses, yet it did little to calm her frayed nerves. Upon entering the office, Sarah quickly noticed that her peers circled around with a sense of buzzing anticipation. Her supervisor, Agent Foster, spotted her and motioned for her to join the group clustered around the central table. With her heart racing, she steeled herself for the conversation ahead. This was no longer just a work briefing. It felt like a turning point. "Agent Thompson, your insights from yesterday have generated some gravity," Foster said, his voice firm but encouraging. "We're ready to dive deeper into the connections you mentioned. What's your plan moving forward?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. A part of her wanted to revert to the familiar territory of reticence, to hide behind the role she had perfected. Yet, another part surged forward, convinced that this was her moment. "I want to investigate the financial records of the businesses linked to our drug trafficking case," she began, her voice steadying. "If we can establish a pattern of monetary flow, we may be able to expose the corruption threatening Walter." As she spoke, a flicker of determination ignited within her. The initial fear of being targeted now felt outweighed by the urgency of the mission. She could not afford to let doubt overpower her resolve. It was the first glimpse of the leader she could be, a force dedicated to more than just her career. Foster nodded, and the energy in the room shifted palpably. Colleagues leaned in, eager to discuss methodologies and resources. The environment buzzed with renewed enthusiasm. They were rallying behind an invigorating purpose. Each idea volleyed back and forth intensified the collective spirit, and for the first time Sarah felt the confidence resonate through her. But as the revelation unfolded, a shadow brushed against her consciousness, a nagging worry that she was drawing danger towards herself. The success of her plan depended on staying under the radar of the corrupt powers they intended to expose. She needed to tread carefully. With each strategy discussed, she felt the razor-thin line of risk slicing through her newfound ambition. Lunchtime brought a brief respite, and Sarah sat outside, lunch untouched as she wrested thoughts from her racing mind. Could she manage the stakes without losing herself in the process? The question lingered as her phone buzzed against her thigh, jolting her from deep contemplation. It was Walter, and the text simply read, "We need to talk." A chill crept over her as she considered the implications of that message. What if Walter had uncovered something that would either propel her mission forward or place them both in grave danger? The urgency intensified. This conversation could alter the trajectory they had both been clutching. The tension coiled inside her belly as she quickly typed a response, arranging to meet at the diner later that evening. This decision felt fraught with uncertainty, yet the grip of purpose offered clarity amidst the chaos. As she returned to her work, every ounce of her being bolstered with determination to confront the looming corporation, she couldn't shake the feeling that their fight was only beginning. What new revelations awaited her at the diner? And could Walter arm her with the tools she needed to face the enemy lurking close? The diner felt different that evening, each familiar booth and neon sign infused with a weighty tension that transcended the walls. Sarah arrived at the specified time, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation. The clatter of silverware and the low hum of conversation enveloped her, but nothing distracted from the prospect of what Walter had to say. She spotted him at a corner table, the same one they always chose for moments that felt significant. Walter's once assured posture now seemed burdened, and as their eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passed between them. This was not merely a catch-up. It was a critical juncture where their lives had converged under dire circumstances. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice a mix of relief and trepidation. He gestured for her to sit, the urgency in his demeanor palpable. Sarah slid into the booth, swallowing her anxiety. "You mentioned you needed to talk. What have you found?" Walter leaned closer, lowering his voice as if the air itself might listen. "I've been looking into the businesses we discussed, the ones linked to the trafficking ring. There's something big going on." He rifled through a folder, producing a collection of documents. As he laid them before her, she could see the surface of something sinister. "I found discrepancies in their financial records, money moving through accounts that seemed to exist solely to hide the flow. It's more complex than we thought." Each paper unfurled a layer of the scheme she never knew existed. As she scanned the details, adrenaline quickened her pulse. They were on the verge of uncovering a network woven tightly through layers of deception, one that shielded its operators with apparent impunity. "What does this mean for us?" Sarah inquired, a sense of purpose igniting within her. "It means we have leverage, but we need to act fast." Walter's brow furrowed, worry lines deepening. "This could attract attention. You need to be careful, Sarah." The caution in his voice jolted her back to the risks at hand. Months ago, she had been merely following orders. Now she was standing on the precipice of a real danger, armed with information that could either liberate them or trap them entirely. With newfound resolve, she responded, "We need to turn this into actionable evidence. I can present it to my team. They'll take it seriously." Walter faltered, shaking his head. "And expose ourselves further? You could be putting your career on the line for a lead that could fizzle out." Her mind raced with conflicting emotions. What cost was she willing to pay for justice? Did she dare risk the security she had clawed back in her professional life for someone like Walter? It felt like a disjointed juxtaposition of personal versus professional stakes. Nevertheless, she couldn't shake the urgency of the moment. If they were right, doubt warped into determination. "I understand the risks, but I can't walk away from this, Walter. Too many lives are at stake." His eyes bore into hers, searching for the resolute fire he had always seen within her. "Fine, but we have to be strategic. We can't raise alarms too soon. They'll come after us." Sarah's gut tightened, a reminder that navigating into darkness could turn lethal at any moment. "We'll be careful. I'll work to solidify our findings without drawing attention. I'll need your input to piece this together." A beat passed, heavy with possibility. The stakes brazed a sense of bravery in her. This was a chance to be the change she had yearned for since stepping into this career. As they discussed approaches and strategies, Sarah became acutely aware of her unfolding potential. Each turn, each idea, elevated her from merely a cog in the system to a pivotal force capable of effecting real change. Yet, with every empowering thought, the tangled web of danger loomed larger. By the time they concluded their meeting, a chill of anticipation ran down her spine. She stood at the edge of a precipice, a moment that would test the very fabric of her morals and her career. As they left the diner, Sarah's heart beat in sync with an unyielding sense of purpose. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Walter asked. The gravity echoed within her as she nodded, acknowledging that they stood together against something monumental. "We need to move quickly. Tomorrow I'll raise this with Foster and the team." But beneath her surface confidence lay an undercurrent of fear. How deep did the corruption run? What were they really up against? Her thoughts spiraled as uncertainty revolved, fueling her drive. Whatever awaited them would demand every ounce of her skills and courage. As they parted ways, the night draped its veil, blurring the distance between triumph and catastrophe. Sarah glanced back at the diner, a reminder of the crossroads she now faced. With newfound conviction brewing within her, she felt the thrill of the unknown beckoning. What would the morrow reveal? And how far would she go to seek the truth they were now on the brink of uncovering? The next morning, Sarah rose to the sound of her alarm blaring like an unseen warning. She stared at the ceiling, realizing that each second ticked closer to a confrontation that would shift everything. The fragility of her professional life mingled with an excitement she hadn't felt in too long. The thrill of the chase had always been alive within her, yet now it carried a heavy cloak of responsibility. In the shower, the water cascaded over her, a futile attempt to wash away doubts that dripped like rain in her mind. She wondered how she would present the evidence to her team. Could she hold her ground if they dismissed her findings? Each lather of shampoo was a beat of preparation, a mental rehearsal of what she would say, but each script she composed slipped like water between her fingers. Arriving at the office, the fluorescent lights flickered to life, illuminating her determination. Foster was already in his office, the door slightly ajar. That slight crack felt like an invitation, yet Sarah hesitated outside, second-guessing her next steps. She needed to remember what Walter had said, strategic and careful. Taking a deep breath, she strode inside, forcing her voice to remain steady. "Foster, do you have a moment?" His eyes, clouded with the remnants of early morning meetings, shifted upward. With a wave of his hand, he motioned for her to continue. She took a seat but felt the weight of the folder in her briefcase. "There's something important I need to discuss." Foster crossed his arms, leaning back in his chair. "You sound serious, Sarah. What is it?" Her heart was a drum in her chest, each beat pushing her closer to an edge she was almost terrified to approach. "I've been looking into some discrepancies in financial records linked to ongoing investigations," she began, pulling out the documents Walter had painstakingly compiled. As she laid the first page on the desk, she watched Foster's features change from casual interest to focused attention. "These accounts appear to be funneling money into businesses associated with a trafficking ring. I think it's bigger than we realized." For a moment, silence enveloped the room. Foster's brow furrowed as he flipped through the papers, skepticism intertwining with intrigue. "And where did you get this information?" he asked sharply, his voice lowering dramatically. "Walter and I have been investigating on our own," she admitted, bracing for the storm of consequences that could follow. "On your own? Without authorization?" He leaned forward, intensity etched into his features. "Do you realize how dangerous that is? Not just for you, but for the entire operation?" Her stomach twisted, guilt clawing at her insides. "I know. But the information is crucial. If we don't act now, we could lose the chance to take down—" Foster cut her off. "You could jeopardize your career, not to mention your safety. This isn't a game, Sarah. If you're going to present this, you need to be sure." His rejection sent a chill through her. She had imagined this moment, and yet the reality felt far more daunting than she anticipated. "I believe the evidence speaks for itself. We can't ignore the possibility of greater involvement," she asserted, her voice gaining strength. His gaze melded skepticism with troubled respect. She sensed a flicker of doubt beginning to ignite within him. "If we pursue this, it must be done with caution. I'll need to verify every detail, and you'll have to tread carefully." She nodded, the strike of adrenaline powering through her. "I understand, and I'm prepared to help get this moving, but I can't do it alone." Foster's expression softened, a hint of admiration injected into his apprehension. "All right, let's assemble a smaller task force. We'll handle this quietly, but there are protocols we will need to follow." As they laid out a plan to delve deeper into the conspiracy, her mind raced with the thrill of collaborative purpose. Each decision felt monumental, revealing her capacity to affect not only her own trajectory, but that of countless lives entwined in this web of corruption. Just as they began highlighting key strategies, Sarah heard a sharp knock on the door. An agent from another division stepped in, an unexpected visitor that could disrupt everything. "Sorry to interrupt, but we need you on a potential lead in a missing persons case," the agent said, glancing at Sarah expectantly, a sinking feeling unfurled in her gut. "We'll be right there," Foster replied, but Sarah's heart raced with the implications of this diversion. Would this new development compromise everything she had just made strides toward? As they made their way to the conference room, the gravity of her dual engagement hung in the air. Sarah knew she had opened Pandora's box with her revelations, but how badly would the impending chaos derail her mission? The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but she couldn't help but feel a fierce resolve igniting within her. As they stepped into the room, she squared her shoulders, determined to navigate this tumultuous landscape. What was waiting for her on the other side of this disruption? And how far would she have to go to seize the truth before it slipped from her grasp? The conference room buzzed with the urgency of the new case. As Sarah took her seat among the others, her mind was a flurry of fragmented thoughts. The missing persons case felt like an intricate web tangled around her primary pursuit of the trafficking ring. Unsure of what to tackle first, she fought the rising tide of anxiety threatening to drown her clarity. Their supervisor briefed the team on the details of the case, the lines of worry etched deep across his face. Sarah focused on absorbing every word, but her thoughts kept straying back to the financial documents tucked away in her briefcase. The hope of exposing a greater conspiracy paradoxically danced with her scope of responsibility for this new crisis. Each moment spent on the missing persons investigation pulled her further from her own lead. The meeting proceeded efficiently, the team discussing possible angles and leads. Sarah contributed whenever she could, bringing her analytical acumen to assess the available information, but internally, she felt fragmented. The high stakes of both cases loomed like a shadow overhead. With every strategy suggested regarding the disappearance, the gnawing anxiety around her own investigation intensified. "You okay, Sarah?" One of her colleagues leaned over, concern etched into his features. "You've been quiet." "I'm fine," she replied, forcing a smile that felt too thin to mask her turmoil. "Just thinking about the next steps." A sharp thought struck her. What if these cases intertwined? What if the missing individuals were victims of the very trafficking operation she had uncovered? The realization propelled her mind in a new direction. She needed to merge her efforts, to advocate for both investigations without losing momentum. As the meeting wrapped up, she found a tactical moment. "Can I suggest something?" Sarah raised her hand, her voice steady despite the quaking uncertainty within. "What if we cross-reference the names of missing persons with the financial records? I believe there may be connections we haven't explored yet." The room fell silent, eyebrows raised in contemplation. After a moment, Foster's face shifted from cautious skepticism to intrigue. "That's an interesting angle, Sarah. We might have a chance at uncovering something deeper." Encouraged, she continued. "If these victims are tied into the money trail we're investigating, it not only accelerates our pursuit on that front but also reinforces our urgency in addressing the missing persons case. We can't let either slip through the cracks." Foster nodded slowly, the gears visibly turning in his mind. "I'll need your analysis on this." Just then, another knock echoed, pulling Sarah back to the present. An agent she didn't recognize but felt he carried an air of seriousness approached the doorway. "Sorry for interrupting again, but there's been a development about the last victim reported." Her heart raced. "What is it?" "New CCTV footage shows them entering a location linked to the recent trafficking allegations." The agent's eyes sharpened, clearly aware of the implications. A knot in Sarah's stomach tightened. This was turning into a convergence point, and she realized the stakes had doubled. It was a proving ground, one where her instincts and intellect would be tested against formidable odds. The adrenaline surged through her. She had always prided herself on resilience, on facing down fears rather than backing away from them. "We need to analyze that footage urgently," she said, determination flowing seamlessly into her words. As plans to pursue the lead solidified, Sarah felt the burden of dual responsibilities shaping her into a more complex version of herself, one that embraced the uncertainties of both fronts head-on. She was no longer just an investigator. She was becoming a strategist, piecing together fragments of a larger puzzle. But as they prepped for their next steps, she couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that accompanied her excitement. Each decision now felt heavier, more consequential, not just for her emerging reputation but for the lives caught in the crossfire of the chaos she was trying to unravel. What would it take to bring all these threads together? The tension swelled, and as the team gathered their resources, Sarah pondered how far she might need to go, to challenge her limits and confront the truth buried deep within this case as she edged closer to potential danger. The moment of convergence was at hand, and with it, the faint whisper of fear crept in. Would the burden of truth become her greatest ally or her fiercest adversary? With every new lead emerging, Sarah stared into the abyss of unanswered questions, bracing herself for the confrontation that loomed ahead, knowing that one revelation could change everything. The flickering lights in the dim room cast a surreal atmosphere as Sarah stared intently at the grainy footage displayed across the screen. Each frame of the CCTV clip probed deeper into her psyche, extracting a mix of unease and determination. The figure moving through the entrance of the building was unmistakably connected to the missing person. Her heart raced. This could be the bridge tying both cases together. Yet profound apprehension seeped in. With each heartbeat, the stakes surged. "Wait, rewind that," she commanded, her tone sharper than intended. The agent at the controls complied without protest, feeling the weight of her urgency. They replayed the segment, scrutinizing the surroundings and any identifiable features in the background. Sarah's mind raced to the financial records she had set aside. If they could confirm connections between this location and the trafficking ring, the odds of them saving a life magnified significantly. As they combed through the footage, Sarah realized that each moment she pushed forward felt like stepping onto fragile ice. An unease simmered beneath her resolve. Would this lead unravel her own painstaking efforts, destabilizing the pursuit of the larger trafficking conspiracy? "Got something?" the agent suddenly exclaimed, leaning into the monitor. "Look at that license plate." A knot twisted in her stomach. The plate flashed on the screen. She had seen it in the financial documents she'd been studying. "That vehicle is tied to one of the accounts we're monitoring." Sarah extended her focus to the team. "This isn't just a random disappearance. We're looking at a target linked to our primary case." The room hummed with the energy of a fresh lead. Ideas bounced around, and the air thickened with the excitement of possibilities. For the first time since the conference, she felt a spark of clarity bloom in the chaos. The intertwining of the two cases could reignite not only her spirit, but also the hope for the victims. Yet as her colleagues celebrated the breakthrough, Sarah cautiously contemplated the morality of their course. What if pushing too hard exposed individuals to retaliation? In her pursuit to connect the dots, would she place others in jeopardy? This moral dilemma troubled her, a haunting darkness tethered to her ambitions. "Sarah, we need a plan." Foster's voice cut through her spiral. "You seem to understand the financial aspect better than anyone." The urge to shove her concerns aside gnawed at her, yet she couldn't silence the warnings resonating within. What if her frenetic ambition hindered her ability to protect the very individuals they sought to rescue? Carefully, she pinned her newfound insight against her trepidation. "I'll need access to surveillance from all locations associated with those transactions. If we untangle that web, we can provide actionable evidence," she proposed with resolution, the words emerging as both a strategy and a shield against her own fears. As the conversation shifted toward logistics, Sarah felt an unsettling shift within her. She was more than an investigator connected to a case. She was standing on the threshold of becoming a formidable force in her own right. Yet with that realization came the revelation of her vulnerability. The responsibility lay heavy on her shoulders. Every choice from that moment would shape not only her career, but also lives entwined in the labyrinth of trafficking. Gesturing for everyone's attention, Sarah embraced the mantle of leadership. "We must tread thoughtfully, understand the implications of every step we take." Tension pulsated in the air, a restless current reflecting her awakening resolve and the grounding awareness of the potential consequences. She felt the barrier between fear and courage dissolving. This path demanded clarity and strength. This was her moment to confront not only the complexities of the case but also the depths of her convictions. As they prepared to divide tasks, Sarah faced the console again, heart drumming with expectation and apprehension. She knew she was at the precipice of a vital decision that could either illuminate the truth or cast her deeper into shadows of uncertainty. How far would she push and what would be the cost? With the camera's eye now pivoted toward her form, every second felt like a countdown as Sarah steeled herself. The moment of truth lingered, heavy with potential. Would she confront the danger waiting to unravel her investigation? A new force ignited within her, pushing her past the temptations of retreat, a determination to expose the truth no matter the cost. And in that fever of resolve, an unexpected name emerged from the echoes of her thoughts. A key player in the financial web. What if uncovering their identity would send ripples of chaos in the criminal underworld? Would it empower her enough to shatter the cycle, or would it entrap her into an even darker entanglement? The answer hovered just out of reach, tantalizing, unavoidable. The weight of the decision hung in the air as Sarah grappled with the revelation of the individual's name. Her mind raced, weaving through the implications. Could this person be the key to dismantling the entire trafficking operation? The thought was electrifying yet also terrifying. Each layer peeled back in her investigation exposed more complexities that intertwined with her own burgeoning convictions. She stood before her team, a chorus of voices discussing tactics. Yet Sarah felt a disconnection. as if she were watching from a distance. The persistent thrum of uncertainty echoed in her ears. What if she was wrong? What if this move jeopardized not just the case, but people's lives? Sarah. Foster's voice pierced her introspection, drawing her back. What do you think? Shaking off the fog of doubt. She knew she had to project conviction. The team needed her vision to guide them. We need to operate under the assumption that this person is high risk, she declared, her voice more assured than she felt. If they sense we're onto them, they could retaliate. We need to be strategic. The team rallied around her suggestions. They began brainstorming ways to conduct surveillance while protecting potential victims. Each idea exchanged sharpened her focus, revealing a strange sense of empowerment. Sarah felt the flicker of leadership finally catching fire within her. Yet lingering beneath her newfound confidence was a personal reckoning. Could she innovate and protect without pushing too hard? Confronting this moral dilemma forced her to pause. The urgency to act clashed with the responsibility weighing down her conscience. Back at her desk later that evening, the cacophony of the day began to fade, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She meticulously reviewed the financial documents again, assessing every detail to correlate the web they were untangling. Lines on paper seamlessly transformed into lives at risk. Those who had been overlooked in her pursuit began to manifest as shadows in her mind, and their plight grew urgent. Outside her office, shadows lengthened as dusk settled in. Still, she remained glued to her screen, tracking patterns, absorbing information until it gave her a headache. Each revelation brought clarity alongside mounting exhaustion. With each expenditure traced back through the accounts, she unraveled a thread leading to something darker. Then it hit her, interlinking profiles and conversations she'd almost overlooked. She stumbled upon a name that connected to both the financials and the recent missing persons reports. The inkling transformed into a visceral need to act. Suddenly, that resolve she had clawed for earlier solidified into a singular purpose. It wasn't just about the case anymore. It was about exposing a network that thrived on suffering. Back in the dim light of her office, Sarah leaned back, allowing the flood of emotion to wash over her. A mix of exhaustion, determination, and fear. She was ready to confront the moral complexities head-on. However, the thought of confrontation stirred dread within, gnawing at her confidence. She reflected on her journey, recognizing the growth shaping her into someone who could stand against the very darkness she had battled. Yet, despite the burgeoning fire inside her, an unsettling wave began to crest. What if this new revelation was more threatening than any one individual? The buzz from the case became a siren song, drawing her in deeper. As she prepped to draft her first official report on the new findings, a nagging thought surfaced, a voice reminding her of the risks. Who was she willing to confront? Would she really put her burgeoning reputation on the line for a chance to save lives? Just as these paths unfurled before her, a sudden notification flashed on her screen. A name illuminated from the web of connections. It was a name she had seen before but brushed aside, a pivotal player in a deeper conspiracy, a dangerous person with a notable influence. The thrill of discovery surged but met a wall of trepidation. She recalled the old adage about curiosity and danger, and for the first time, she wondered if it referred to her own ambition. How could she unravel a conspiracy that seemed impossible to penetrate? The cost of engagement loomed ominously, but the glimmer of responsibility grew in equal measure. Sarah meticulously prepared her notes, her vision sharp and intense, knowing the next move she made could spark an escalation in conflict. But as the end of her day faded into night, one inevitable question remained. Could she summon the courage to pursue the truth she had uncovered? Or would she find herself ensnared in a web of her own making? With pen poised above paper, she recognized the moment had come to confront not only the traffickers but herself as well. In the silence of her office, she wondered, what realities awaited her if she chose to follow the threads all the way to their source? The flickering light of her computer screen cast long shadows across Sarah's desk, amplifying the urgency with which she needed to act. With a pounding heart, she took a calming breath, but the air felt thick with anticipation. Every detail she had scrutinized over the past few days weighed heavily on her, and now the stakes felt impossibly high. She wasn't just piecing together a case. She was standing at the precipice of something far more substantial. Her mind jogged through the potential consequences of her next steps. Exposing the name she had uncovered could unravel the entire trafficking organization, or it could ignite a ruthless retaliation that would reverberate far beyond her understanding. The weight of that choice pressed down, twisting her stomach in knots that wouldn't easily untie. Sarah clenched her jaw, forcing herself to focus. While her instincts screamed for caution, she couldn't shake the images of the victims she'd read about. Each would have a story, lives disrupted and futures crushed. She imagined their faces. The fragmented pieces of their existence weighed against her professional aspirations. This battle was shifting from the strategic to the deeply personal. Channeling that emotional turmoil into determination, she started drafting her report. The words flowed onto the page with an intensity that surprised her. Each sentence was a step toward unveiling a truth that had long lived in shadows. She felt invigorated, almost liberated, until a sharp knock echoed through her office door, pulling her from the spiraling whirlwind of thoughts. It was Foster, attempting to mask his concern under a facade of casualness. "Hey, everything okay?" he asked, his tone betraying the worry etched across his features. "Yeah," she replied, forcing a smile, yet feeling the tension coil tighter in her chest. "Just digging deeper into the case and got a bit carried away." Foster nodded, his gaze sharp. "You've been burning the candle at both ends. We need you at 100% if we're going to pull this off." He was right, but the urgency coursing through her prevented any thought of rest. "I can't stop now. I just uncovered a name linked to the finances and missing persons. If I can piece this together—" "Sarah," he interrupted gently, trying to ground her. "Don't lose sight of yourself. You're not just a cog in this machine, you're a person." His words cut deeper than she expected. She felt the truth sink in and grappled with the ache it created. Was she losing herself to this mission? The thoughts were muddled. She wanted to be the change in the world, but feared she might become too entrenched in darkness, potentially crossing lines she had vowed never to breach. Pushing back emotion, she straightened her posture, determined to reclaim her focus. "We need to plan everything meticulously," she said, her tone authoritative once more. "If I'm right, this could lead us straight to the nexus of operations. We can't let this slip away." Foster held her gaze and nodded slowly, recognizing the conviction that had transformed her demeanor. "All right then, let's strategize together. No more lone wolf stuff." As they convened, drafting contingencies and operational tactics, Sarah could feel her confidence swell, but something deeper nagged at her consciousness. Each plan they outlined wasn't merely a tactical approach, but a reflection of her growing leadership capabilities. It was exhilarating, yet the notion that her next decisions could expose lives to danger loomed ominously. The hours vanished as they worked, the weight of their ideas filling the room. Yet beneath the intensity, Sarah battled an internal conflict. What if pursuing this path led to choices she wasn't ready to make? As doubts clawed at her mind, she grappled with the realization that leadership wasn't just about strategy or bravado. It was about personal accountability and moral clarity. With the day stretching into the early hours of the morning, Sarah felt the swell of pressure mounting again. She knew that as exhilarating as this moment was, it was merely the first act in a much larger play. The deeper she dug for truth, the more entrenched her role in the outcome would become. And finally, as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling that felt both familiar and foreign, she recognized the pivotal moment lying ahead. The tide had turned, but she now faced a critical question that reverberated within. Would she stay the course? And if so, at what cost? As those thoughts enveloped her, bringing on a struggle between ambition and self-preservation, she feared there was no easy answer. Tomorrow would demand more than mere determination. Tomorrow she had to step from the shadows and confront the looming specter of her own ambition, ready or not. The question damning her kept echoing in the recess of her mind. What awaited her when she finally emerged from the darkness? As dawn broke, casting soft light through the blinds, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee warming her hands. The taste was bitter, much like the path she had chosen. Thoughts from the previous day swirled in her mind, moments of courage intertwined with deep-rooted fears. In that quiet morning stillness, she finally acknowledged that her journey was no longer just about cracking a case. It had transformed into a personal crusade for justice that resonated far beyond her own ambitions. With renewed conviction, Sarah prepared to face the myriad responsibilities enveloping her in the FBI. Each decision now felt monumental, a defining moment carving her into the agent she aspired to be. She swiftly crafted a briefing document incorporating her findings from Walter's evidence and the connections between the financial malfeasance and the missing persons. It was time to share her whole story, to ensure her colleagues recognized the stakes involved, not just for her career but for countless lives. As she arrived at the office, the atmosphere buzzed with familiarity, yet Sarah felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. She walked straight into Foster's office. This was a pivotal opportunity to bridge her personal fight with their professional mission. "Thanks for being here early, Foster. I have something crucial to discuss," she began, her voice steady and forthright. Foster looked up from his papers, sensing the urgency woven into her words. "Let's hear it. What do you have?" Taking a quick breath, Sarah laid out the evidence, a web of financial transactions that linked the corporation to the trafficking ring and the alarming disappearance of several locals. As she unfolded the details, she observed recognition dawning on Foster's face, a flicker of admiration in his eyes confirming her resolve. "Every detail is vital, and lives are at stake," she insisted, her tone unwavering. "We need to act while we still can." Foster nodded, his calculated nature revealing how her conviction propelled her message. "All right, this changes things. I can put together a task force that specifically tackles these ties. Approach it methodically. No unnecessary risks." The meeting morphed into an announcement of a new direction. The attention in the room shifted as Sarah presented her insights. Colleagues leaned forward, absorbing her proposed strategy, causing a ripple of excitement to permeate the office. They saw her as more than just an agent. She was the catalyst for real change. As discussions flourished, Sarah felt a profound sense of belonging solidify within her. Her voice echoed, not from mere authority, but from the heart of community. Her father's legacy unfolded as she fought for something worth rallying around. "Working together, we'll approach this with absolute diligence," she declared, galvanizing an atmosphere of energy charged with newfound purpose. "We pull the thread slowly and deliberately, ensuring no risk tips our hand too early." With everyone's participation, plans took shape, and Sarah saw her own vision mirrored within the perspectives of her colleagues. It was no longer just about uncovering individual truths. They were safeguarding the future of their community. This was her moment of transcendent growth. She considered herself not just a servant of the agency but a steward of justice, reinforcing the very principles she valued. The ensuing weeks were a whirlwind, each day replete with hard-won victories and the occasional setback that tested her resolve. They meticulously verified leads, identified critical connections, and even managed to save several individuals whose existence had been previously ensnared in the darkness of human trafficking. The scrutiny from the higher-ups grew intense, yet each compliment from peers re-established her belief in her instincts. She had crossed the line from apprehensive agent to tenacious investigator, earning the respect of not only her colleagues, but of the community she held dear. The pivotal shift was palpable. She saw it reflected in every encounter at the diner with Walter, every connection she made with the residents, who now viewed her as a pillar of hope, rather than just an authoritative figure. Weeks turned into months, and Sarah Thompson emerged as a formidable agent, her reputation fortified by the men and women behind her, their collective resolve rooted in the desire for justice. The very darkness threatening to consume her had become a mere backdrop to the luminous light she had ignited within herself, recognizing the invaluable force of community and purpose. As she stood at the edge of a conference room, preparing to deliver a presentation on their next steps toward dismantling the betrayal embedded within corporate greed, she affirmed her evolution. This was more than a career. It was a calling to ensure that no one felt trapped in the shadows of despair. Much like the warmth that Walter's diner had always exuded. Finally confident, Sarah raised her arm, ready to reveal not just the facts but the heart of their mission. With each word she spoke, she stood prouder than she ever had before. A solid confidence ignited by authenticity and an unyielding commitment to justice. Sarah's transformation was complete. She had not only achieved the professional recognition she sought, but had risen triumphantly against the darkness, proving to herself and the world that true strength lies in loving one's community. With anticipation buzzing in the air, as she stood at the precipice of unveiling their findings, Sarah realized she had not merely uncovered crime. She had conquered her fears, illuminating the path for others to follow. In doing so, she left behind doubt, armed herself with awareness, and embraced the clarion call to action that resonated louder than before. It was time for her community, and indeed the world, to wake up. And as the familiar creak of the conference room door echoed behind her, she whispered to herself, "I'm ready. Now it's your turn." Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment with your reactions and theories about this exciting conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this triumphant ending. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand how important it is to keep this movement alive.